it is my joy and my honor to introduce our guest speaker today, Rashero Mccreary. Rashero, I'm going to read a little bit of bio, but mostly I want to speak from my heart about her. But I want you to know, and some of you who get our emails know this already, she's a Georgetown University trained executive leadership coach, and the CEO of Dow Leadership Development Corporation. She has trained and or coached thousands of leaders in just a few of the organizations are American Express, P&G, HBO, PayPal, Harvard Business School, and many, many, many more. She was a professional theater actress and founded a nonprofit organization for several years after she graduated from college. She was awarded for her work the Northern Ohio Live Award of Achievement and the Marshall Memorial Fellowship, as well as being featured extensively in the media. And this is the most important part for us. Rasheryl grew up in religious science. She grew up in that teaching. So she has embodied this in her whole heart and soul. And she has been a member of multiple spiritual centers, CSL centers, religious science centers, all over the country since childhood. In 1993, she became a licensed practitioner at Agape under the tutelage of Michael Beckwith. And she's a guest speaker, workshop, retreat facilitator, board and business consultant, and yada, 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 on and on and on and on. Currently, she sits on the board of directors for the Arizona Foundation for Women. And she just recently graduated from ministerial school at Holmes Institute in June 2021, this year. So she's a recent graduate of Holmes Institute. And I want to call her Reverend because she's been a Reverend for years in my mind. We're not supposed to officially call her that yet, but we're Agape, so we break the rules all the time. So I'm going to introduce this person who's so dear to my heart. She's deep in consciousness. You are going to love her. She did an amazing board retreat. I have been in many, many board retreats. And I have to say this one was stellar. It's the best one I've ever been in. And so I am so grateful and happy to introduce to you our guest speaker for today. And I'm going to call her the Reverend Rashero Mccreary. Rashero.
Oh, Reverend Joan, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much for having me here. And I am touched because you and I have come a mighty long way together in this walk over many, many years. And you are still my teacher, even though we're friends now, but you were my teacher. And still are my teacher. So to have you speak so lovingly of me and to welcome me and acknowledge me as your soul sister is so touching to me, and I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here, and just so glad to be here at Agape Bay Area. You know, today my talk is entitled Rise Up Stronger, Rise Up Stronger. And, you know, when you look out around at all that's going on, I call the pandemic the pandemonium. So when you look at the pandemonium that is just, you know, is breaking out and it surges and it diminishes and, you know, and then there's wars and rumors of war and there's viruses and there's this and there's all these things going on. And everything seems to be in an upheaval. We're in the middle of a grand disruption that is pushing us to the edge. And I liken it to an exercise, an improv exercise that I actually do with my executive clients. And I was sharing this with the board, with your board yesterday. There's an improv exercise I do with my clients called Big Change Fast. And I do this in a group setting with leaders at these companies that you heard about. And what Big Change Fast is all about exactly what it sounds like. All these things are coming at the executive, you know, all of these different verbal cues. It's an improv game that's designed to help them be able to navigate through disruption, navigate through change, and maintain what's called their executive presence or their leadership presence, right? So basically, you know, in spiritual language, it's called, you know, being centered and being present despite what is going on around you. And so I feel like, you know, we're in this cosmic game of big change fast. You know, we're just in this cosmic game. Just when we think things can't get any more absurd or ridiculous or frenetic, it amps it up, it ramps up even more. And so one of the things that happens in this improv or any improv game, there are a couple things that have to happen in order for you to play it successfully. So one is you have got to be centered, right? You have got to be centered, and you have to be in the game, but not of it. You have to be what we call that witness consciousness, where you are aware that there are these things happening, all this stuff is going around, all these things are going on, but you are present to it, and you're also witnessing it. You're also able to see what's happening, how you're responding, and that little bit of detachment moves you out of impulsivity and reactivity and moves you into a place of being able to consciously react, consciously respond. Consciously respond, right? So that's sort of the first sort of thing in terms of your mindset. If you're in improv and there's all this stuff going on, you have to be centered. The second mindset that has to happen is you've got to say yes. In improv, you have to say yes. So because if something's happening in an improv situation and you're going back and forth, maybe you've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway? If you've ever seen that show, right? If you're in an improv scene and someone says no or shuts something down, doesn't accept what's coming at them, doesn't accept it and interact with it, the whole thing falls apart. It just falls flat, right? So non-spiritual people say the first rule of improv is say yes. I say the first rule is be centered, right? Be centered and anchored, and then you got to say yes. And so if we think about this big change fast that we're in, this big cosmic improv that we're in right now, so we have those mindsets. We're centered. We are saying yes to whatever's coming our way. There are three things I want you to really think about and really practice and put into practice as practical ways to navigate through the times that we are in and actually rise from them. So one is like when you're ready to rise, typically what happens, or something's happened and knock you down, or even if you're looking at right now, how do I come out of this pandemonium? I need new right livelihood, or maybe some relationships have dissolved, or maybe whatever. All these things are going on. How do I rise up from this? How do I rise up stronger from this? One of the things you have to do first and foremost is you've got to honor right where you are. So frequently when we want to rise from something, we want to move on from something, we go immediately to what's the vision? I want a vision. I want to get out of, I want to get out of this. So that's sort of what our thinking is. We're trying to get beyond where we are. And you've got to honor it first. You've got to honor right where you are. And one way that you honor your present circumstances and your present life, because keep in mind, your present moment is the past made manifest, right? The moment you're living right now, the life you're living right now is all a result of past consciousness. And so you want to honor the sacredness of that, even if it feels uncomfortable. And one way that you do it is by taking radical responsibility for what's happening. Now, I don't mean radical blame, shame, guilt, or shoulding. I mean radical responsibility. And radical responsibility basically says, as you're looking around at all these things, okay, I accepted that this is where I am right now. I accept that I may have made some decisions, some choices. My consciousness brought me to this place, and I accept it. I bless it. I love it. I release it. I forgive myself. I forgive whoever, right? I'm taking radical responsibility. The opposite of radical responsibility is what you see a lot in the media, on Facebook, all these places where you see everything as a victim, right? If I have to do this, someone's doing this to me. The pandemic is doing this to me. COVID's doing this to me. You're making me wear a mask. You're making, there's all this sort of kingdom one consciousness, this victim consciousness versus COVID's not doing anything to you. The pandemic is not doing anything to anyone. It is what it is. It exists. It's happening. Life happens, right? Life happens. And it doesn't happen to us. It happens through us. And so what we want to move into is, if we think about radical responsibility, is, okay, these things are happening and I accept that, and I accept my circumstances right now. And so I am at peace with this. I accept this. I honor it. And then you're ready to move on. Right? You're ready to move on. But as long as we're thinking these things are happening to us, there is no way to really generate any kind of sustainable outcome from that, because that is that victim consciousness, right? So And since we're on Zoom, I'm going to toggle back and forth because I have a couple of quotes here. Reverend Michael says that the spirit within us is so powerful that it can rise even after the most devastating of circumstances, right? Even after the most devastating of circumstances, it can still rise. And Howard Thurman says, you can't stand in the midst of the world and struggle for fundamental change unless you're standing in your own space and looking for change within. Right. So you can't struggle for fundamental change in the world if we're not sort of accepting where we are right now and beginning that process of changing within. So radical responsibility is a way of honoring right here, right now, right where you are. And once you have done that, then you want to be thinking about, how do I power up? What are the consistent practices that help me power up, that help me charge up? And we know what those are. We know that doing our meditation, beautiful meditation this morning, Michael, so sweet, so deep, right? But doing that meditation, whatever your spiritual practices are, yoga, visioning, visualizing, affirmation, spiritual community, we've got to stay powered up. You can't rise without power. You can't. There has to be something to propel you up and forward. Right? There has to be something, some fuel, some energy that's going to get you moving, get you up, lifted up into this new experience, this new way of life. And you can only generate power, and you can only power up when you're doing your practices. It is our fuel, our nourishment. I always say to my clients in the business world, when I'm talking about coaching, which is really low key, undercover, down low practicing, but we call it executive leadership coaching. So I always say to them, and I say to my spiritual clients, that this spiritual walk is not sexy. Like spiritual work it's not sexy. It's like going to the gym, right? So your practices are like going to the gym. You do your reps. You go to the gym, you get at the weights, you do your reps or whatever it is you do for physical fitness. And it's not sexy. It's boring. But so what? As Reverend Michael used to say in practice training, I think I may have asked the question, or someone one time, well, what if you don't want to meditate every day? Or what if your mind's not quiet? Or blah, 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 blah. I was young in practice training. And he's like, so what? And what does that even mean? That doesn't even mean anything, right? Just do it. It's the same thing for us now. At this point, it's like you have to do your meditation, your prayer, whatever your spiritual practice is. Do those reps. And just like working out, it's boring. It may be painful. You may not want to do it. You may have resistance. But guess what? One day you look up, you put on that swimsuit, and it fits, and you look good, right? And you look good. And it's like, oh, yeah, why was I so resistant to that, right? And so that's what the powering up is all about. It's just like, do the work. It's just do the work, do your reps, do your sit-ups, do your push-ups, eat the right food, right? It's just that daily stuff that is so boring, but it is absolutely what builds the foundation and the structure that allows us to fly, that allows us to soar. It is our maintenance, right? It is our maintenance. Like a plane would not take off. A plane does not take off into the sky without having lots of mechanics and maintenance and making sure everything's done, and whatever other things have to happen to make sure that plane is in good condition to fly. It's the same thing with us, with our body temples, with our consciousness, right? It's our consciousness. So powering up is so important. And again, we forget that. We want to just jump into changing something without taking the proper steps. You want to put on the swimsuit and you haven't worked out. Right? It's not going to be the experience you want it to be. So now I want to talk about how we envision a new future. How we envision a new future. I love and always quote Reverend Michael, the pain pushes till the vision pulls. And so when we want, usually what happens when we're in that kind of big change fast, all this stuff is going on, the pain is so intense. That's what makes us want to jump over, like, I got to get out of this. Right? I want to get out of this, right? And that can be an effective way. That can be effective. It is effective. Many of us have grown in that way. I know I have many times where something was so painful, it finally forced me to make a change. But guess what? In the pandemonium right now, we have an opportunity to also let the vision pull us, to have such a rich, bold, compelling, spirit-fueled vision that we have no choice. We have no choice but to move towards it. That's the opportunity that we have right now. With this, the disruption that is happening, the beautiful thing about disruption, it can be devastating, right? It can feel devastating. It can feel the world like that as we knew it is gone, right? And you ask any of these businesses that have been disrupted, like Netflix disrupted Blockbuster, and Airbnb has disrupted the hotel industry, and Uber has disrupted cars, taxis, and car services. So for those industries that were disrupted, it feels like the end of the world. Right? For us right now, this disruption can feel like the end of the world. But the beautiful thing, the powerful thing about disruption is it is a powerful creative energy. And what it does is it unlocks so much possibility, right? That creativity hits up against the old, right? Airbnb hit up against the hotel industry. They had to innovate, right? Netflix hit up against Blockbuster. They tried to innovate. It was too late. They didn't listen. It was too late. So they don't exist anymore. Right. But the ones that are still standing, and for those of us right now, right here, we're having this disruption hit up against us so that we so that it can catalyze incredible power and catalyze incredible creativity. When I was working with the board yesterday, with your board yesterday, oh, I was just overcome. I had a moment of just being overcome by the power, the possibility, by the endless creativity, by the unending, inexhaustible options that are right before you. That are right before you. This disruption has created, the way church is even being disrupted, means that there's endless possibility. There's endless ways things can reconfigure themselves if we're open to it. Right? If we're open to it, if we're trying to do the same thing the same way it's always been done, then we might end up like Blockbuster, right? But if we can ride this wave and we can stay open, then we can begin to usher in there's a divine pattern that already exists. There's a divine blueprint for how all this is supposed to work. And so when we're open, we allow that to emerge. We allow that to emerge. And we can cultivate it. We can cultivate it and bring it forth by the fundamental practice at every agape. The fundamental practice is visioning, right? The fundamental practice is Michael Beckwith's process of visioning, really sitting down and going through that process of asking, what is the highest idea? What is God's highest idea? What is God's highest vision, possibility? What does it look like, feel like, and to go through that visioning process, which I know that you do, but do it for your life. If it's time for you to rise, do this for your life, for yourself. Right? What is God's highest idea, highest vision for your life, for your personal ministry? Right? So that's one way we begin to cultivate that vision and cultivate and pull through and allow to emerge through us that which already exists, that which already is in form. We're just ushering it in, we're midwifing it in. The other practice that's really helpful, it's different, but it's super powerful, is visualizing, right? And we don't use that a lot. But let me share why both of these practices work in tandem. So visioning is it opens we're open to that which we don't know. We don't know what God's highest idea is. So we're opening ourselves up to the unknown, right? Visualizing, we're pulling from what we already know. We're pulling from a set of circumstances that we're already, or set of experiences or whatever that we're already familiar with. And so when you can do your visioning and do a visualizing practice on a regular basis, where you're taking the highest and best of what you already know, what you do by both of those practices is you begin to increase your mental equivalent, right? From science of mind, right? Your mental equivalent, your consciousness, your container, your ability and capacity to experience something, right? Your belief in experiencing something. When you do both of those practices, when you're doing visioning and you're consciously visualizing with vision boards or in groups, or go back to creative visualization, what you're doing is you're populating your consciousness, you're populating your mental equivalent, you're populating your awareness with the highest and best that's possible, that you know, and then that you don't know. Right? You're pushing that envelope, pushing that envelope, pushing that envelope. And from a neuroscience perspective, one of the best ways to, or one of the ways that you rewire your brain, where you create new neural pathways, new ways of thinking, is visual. Right. So visually, that's why you will see astronauts or athletes or people who need high performance. I'm seeing some of my clients using this stuff now. They'll have the virtual reality glasses, right? The virtual reality stuff, or they will do guided meditations or guided visualizations, because that is how you reprogram your brain. And so then your brain helps you begin to look for, oh, okay, so you want 150 people or 200 people at church on Sunday, and you want it packed, and you want this. So your brain then starts to pick up all the clues in the environment of what needs to happen to make that happen. Things that you may not have seen before, things that you didn't notice before, people you didn't really think about before, things that you've heard but it didn't register. Well, now your brain, because you've been doing the visualizing and you've been wiring yourself and seeing and absorbing it, now your brain is like open, and so it's going to pick up clues. Right. So this is how you begin to envision a new future. And these things work together. One is not better than the other. They're different things that help you achieve the same outcome. Together, they are powerful. And so I encourage you to start a practice of that, of visioning and asking God, what is God's idea? Open to the unknown. And then in the known world, expand your vision as far and as high as you can in whatever way that means. Right? Expand as far and high as you can, where you see it, where you feel it, where you touch it, you taste it, and you have a sense of it, and that begins to expand your mental equivalent. And once you do that, you have to have the outcome. You have to have a different outcome. You have to have the outcome that you are envisioning. That is how we create a new world. That is how we create a new world. It's because what you're doing is you're giving energy to the vision, one way or the other, whatever the practice is, you're giving energy to the vision. You're soaking your brain in that vibration and in those thoughts and those images that are what you want to experience. And this is how we rise. This is how we rise. Even collectively, even when we look around right now in the world, and you look at how much energy is spent on social media, just if we just talk about that, right? Just how much energy is spent on social media. And I see so frequently people leaving and having these heartfelt messages, and sometimes hot messages, and all these things are happening, and people are expressing. And sometimes I look at it and I go, wow, if all of that energy was actually focused on what we're trying to manifest versus what we don't like, imagine what the difference would be, right? If all of that energy, all of that passion, all of that venom, sometimes all of that focus, right? All of that focus and all that energy and the words and the memes and this, imagine if all of that was about peace and abundance and all needs met and people in right livelihood and people doing the right thing. And imagine if we focused on that, right? Imagine the difference it would be, because social media is an energy just like anything else, right? The more energy we give it, and literally the algorithm, right? The algorithm is like the law, right? The more energy we give certain things, the law called the algorithm goes, oh, let me show you more of these things. Oh, you like to see, violent interactions of people. Oh, you like that. Oh, well, let me give you more of that, right? Oh, you like to see, these terrible things happening over here. Oh, okay, well, let me put more of that right in front of you. It's the law. It is the law, right? Made manifest. And so even as we envision our new world, to be mindful of what we're doing in the world, right? Even in that just the narrowness of social media, to begin to program And so it's not, it's not as much of a adrenaline rush when you're looking at the the peaceful stuff, right? Or when you're in agreement with a group of people. It's not the adrenaline rush of like, what did you say? What are you talking about? It's, that's a big adrenaline rush when you're like, when people are going at it on Facebook, or I don't know if you guys have this app called Nextdoor, where you're like, for your neighborhoods. And it's always stunning to me how, I don't get on there much, but sometimes, there'll be like a dog lost or something like that. And it's always stunning to me how, here's this cute little puppy who was lost and someone took it home and they took it in, they take it in their house and everyone's concerned. And then about 20 comments in, somebody says something, and now we're in like a brawl. Like it's like a brawl, a political brawl, where people are drawing blood with their words, and it's like, how do I'm just sitting there going, how did we end up here? What happened that all of us, we're looking at the cute little puppy, and now people are like, threatening each other about something totally unrelated. So this is what I mean about, I use that just as a funny thing, because I fell down the rabbit hole again today when I saw a cute little chihuahua who was lost. And then all of a sudden I was in the middle of a big, thing. And it's like, wow. I mean, I wasn't writing, I was just reading it, but the point I'm making is, in order for us to rise up, we have got to be mindful of where our consciousness is and what we're doing and what we're giving energy to, so that all of us can rise. Collectively, we can rise, and we can feed that algorithm, whether it's social media, whether it's our own, just the capital A algorithm that's called the law. We feed it what we want. It always says yes, just like we always say yes in improv, right? That law says, yes, it is impersonal. You want more of this? Here you go. You're thinking about that? Here you go. This is where you're really agitated and got some energy going. Well, here you go. Here's more of that, right? So this is how we rise. So let me share this last statement. And so, second here. Okay, so this is just from Creative Mind, right? Just to remind us. This is from Ernest Holmes' Creative Mind. So it says, rise up in all the faith of one who knows what she is dealing with, and declare that you are one with infinite mind. Know that you cannot get away from this mind. You cannot get away from this mind. Wherever you may go, there, right beside you, right within you, waiting to be used, is all the power there is in the universe. When you realize this, you will know that in union with this, the only power, that you are more than all else. You are more than anything that can ever happen to you. Right? When you realize, when you know that in union with this one power, this one presence, this one life, this one thing, that you are more than all else, and that you're more than anything that can ever happen to you. So that's what I want to leave us with today. And this is how we rise up stronger.